Good afternoon, Westwood, and welcome to episode 27 of the Wolverine Report. Joined, as always, by my co-host, Evan Cardimino, Charlotte Lynch, technical director, Marie Fiscaldo, social media, and I am Morgan Donahue. And folks, we have an episode we are very much looking forward to, Dad's episode. We are joined today by Eddie Martucci, Joe O'Malley, Eddie, the father of Dante, Gianni, and Enzo, Joe, the father of Murphy, Mary, Trick, Claire, and Desmond, and looking forward to getting a dad's perspective of what it's like being in the Westwood community, Westwood athletics, around their kids, student athletes, and really looking forward to this episode. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. And how are we doing today?
Awesome. Thanks for having us. This is cool.
Thank you. This is awesome. Can't wait to get into it.
Absolutely. So guys, right off the bat, what has your experience been like living in Westwood and being dads to student athletes at Westwood High School?
I mean, that's awesome. I think we're both sports guys, and from the time our kids were little, I know I can speak for myself, but Joe will speak for his family. Our kids were like watching sports on TV and throwing balls in the yard. Yeah. And so coming to Westwood and then having them kind of move into being student athletes and actually performing on the field and playing, it's kind of like something you've looked forward to for a very long time, to watch your kids go out there and play. And I think we live in an area that is really supportive of athletics and student athletes. So it's a ton of fun, and you get a lot of pride watching your kids out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I think about it, I'm not a father, but I want to be a father someday. And I always think about, I can't wait to have kids, and I can't wait to watch them play sports in high school. Did you guys have that kind of similar, vision of when you had kids, or like when you thought, I want to have kids someday? Would you always think about being a coach or watching them on the sidelines playing high school sports?
Yeah. I mean, we started off when they were really little, coaching them, and it's herding cats, right? When they're at that age. Yeah. But you see, every little kid kind of pops at their own time. Some of them at 6 years old are so much better than other kids. Then when they're 7 years old, the other kids kind of caught up with them. By 10 years old, everyone's at a different level. Watching them go from that to high school sports is night and day. It is a lot, for me at least, a lot more nerve-wracking sitting in the stands watching it than being on the field coaching, and especially playing. When you're out there, when we were younger, and even when we were older as younger dads, we played football together, flag football in Old Man League. All that adrenaline gets out because you're running around and you're the one making it happen. But when you have to watch a kid do it, it's nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
Until football, I didn't realize that. Because when you play football, right, that first kickoff, you're just looking forward to the first kickoff when you hit someone, and then all the adrenaline's gone in a positive way. You're all energy, and you're just focused in on the game. The first varsity football game that Dante played in a couple years ago, I realized, I'm like, this is horrible, because the first kickoff happened and I still had all the crazy adrenaline.
It's torture.
And then the first time he got hit and I still had all the adrenaline. And you realize all the way through the game, it's like an adrenaline dump, and it's rough. So it's very, very hard, but it's awesome. Right. And it's funny, you said, is it something you've looked forward to for many years? Definitely from when they were little. But so my brother and I grew up in Connecticut, and he lives in town now. He has my nephew Ben is in elementary school, so a little ways off. Yeah. But for years we texted each other. We still do sometimes, like on a cool fall morning or on a nice spring morning, like, oh my God, this feels like football weather. I wish if I could just put the jersey on one more time. Yeah. But a couple years ago that stopped for me, because it's kind of like I'm not looking forward to myself playing anymore. I'm just like waiting for the kids to get out on the field.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the kids, first of all, it's enjoyable being a dad and being involved. But to see the development too, we talk about with many of the different athletes that come on and coaches, one of the best classrooms is the athletic field, and being coached by someone other than your parents sometimes, and getting criticism and, learning and, being able to work on, different skill sets to become better. But the values and lessons, and then to do it as a coach with your kid there, like it's got to be a remarkable experience of the highs and lows, and as former athletes like yourself, after say like a Westwood game from this season, how much chatter is there with, your sons in regards to the game, X's and O's, things like that? Or do you talk to them on the next day and you focus on the next week? What kind of chatter is there after,
a lot?
on a loss, we give it a day and then we start talking about it. On a win, we always focus on the positive.
Yeah.
And we look back on the negative, but try to be a goldfish, as Ted Lasso would say, right? Goldfish have that 10-second memory. Forget the bad, but learn from it and move on to the positive. From the time that game ends to the next game starts, we're talking about it, throughout the season, every day.
Yeah.
I wish we always focused on the positive. That's it's a little balanced. We do a little bit of both. Like you can get into the negative loop where you're focusing on, damn, if I only did this right, or I wish this went better. We definitely stay up very late on game nights. I agree. On losses, the sentences are shorter.
Yep.
and the tempers are a little higher and the mood is a little darker. So like things get cut off quicker. On big wins, it's not uncommon in our household that everyone is up till like 10, 11, midnight. And then when I wake up in the morning, they're up already because the adrenaline's still going. And we're talking about every play and we're analyzing and we're thinking about, all right, what can we capitalize on the next week? So it feels like it's a little bit like in a coach's war room in the house.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the seasons, spring and fall.
You guys are both also, on top of that, you're both big parts of the Gridiron Club. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the things you guys do as a part of the Gridiron Club and for Westwood football?
Yeah, absolutely. Gridiron Club, for people that don't know, it is the group that supplements a large part of the football season, because football is a unique sport in that there's so many kids that play. So it's the largest sport by pure team members by a landslide. And it has a lot that has to happen to coordinate the season, right? It's a very involved sport. So there's a budget above and beyond what Westwood School systems put into the budget for football. There's about a $30,000 shortfall to do all the other things that need to happen. Yeah. So that's what the Gridiron fills. So it's a group of all volunteers, all parents and family members that essentially are all season long planning everything that needs to happen in and around the game. We don't touch anything to do with the game, obviously. Yeah. It's a nonprofit, but it takes a lot of arms and legs and a lot of planning and a lot of support from the community to both fill that kind of financial need so that the boys can have a really full season in and around the games, and also do all the things that need to happen to generate energy for the games and to make sure everything's coordinated. So it's a group that has been really grown over the last few years. The last couple of years, Brian Donahue was the president and did an incredible job with actually a pretty small group of people running it to do everything that needs to happen for the season. He brought me on last year to sort of amp up the fundraising and amp up the energy for games. And it's I think it's been really fun to watch really what became a community organization, honestly, by the end of the fall, with a lot of people involved doing a lot of different things from, all the things you'll see on social media, but also at the games themselves. All that stuff that happens, the kind of carnival atmosphere at some games, like all of that is done by a whole lot of volunteers coordinating throughout the season.
Yeah, and the Donahues have done, since we moved here, the Donahues have done an unbelievable job. And it's all volunteer. 100%. And they've gotten some people to come in, parents of the football players to come in and help. And it's been incredible this year. Eddie stepped in and put this together like a boardroom. Yeah. And he's like, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of that, and got everyone jacked up and excited to be a part of it. Yeah. And everyone took that role so seriously. And I've never been a part of something so great that these kids had every opportunity that they wanted was in front of them. The amount of money they raised, the amount of money you need for something like this, I had no idea myself. And they did it with Eddie at the helm. And he kind of steered the ship in the right direction and got everything from the pasta dinners to the hype crew at the games to the cowbells. I don't want to talk about the cowbells. I know everyone loves the cowbells. But they awesome.
Inside the huddle, the weekly interviews.
Right.
Those are fantastic.
And it's great. And it gets the whole community involved. But it takes a lot of people, a lot of volunteers. And to be part of something like that, something great, is awesome. Not only for the kids, but the parents too.
To give a few shout outs, we had some businesses in the community step up in a huge way. Yeah. So Parsons Sports Performance down in Norwood, who trains a lot of our football players and baseball players. CJ Parsons, who owns that, really stepped up. He was the first to jump in and be an official sponsor, which was a brand new thing we started this year. Mike DeSaro and Neroli, Mercado and Ristorante, he stepped up huge, not just with being a sponsor, but I mean, pretty much every home game, he did something else for us.
Fueling our kids.
The field goals.
Fed them.
Yeah. fed
field
the
goals,
kids,
the gift
field goal
certificates and field
competitions,
goals,
Supreme Development, who's building a lot in Islington. They stepped up. And then Joe's right. You had all these committees throughout the season. Mimi O'Shea is really the parent who took the hype crew to the next level.
She was the one for it.
Mimi and Sam Ritchie. And then, Heather Toole. We had, just a lot of people, Kathleen Holland and Lori Warren, and I'm going to miss some people, but obviously the Donagans, the people that stepped up to do a lot of work. It takes a ton of effort, volunteering. Siobhan O'Malley did a lot.
Snack Shack, Cliff took that over.
Snack Shack. There was a lot.
Wolfie.
Which can't beat Wolfie.
I don't know if I can say who Wolfie is.
The best of the best.
Is that a secret still?
I think it's still a secret.
All right, I'm not going to say.
We heard, but we
got Wolfie to do a shoot with us for one of our sponsors for the broadcast a couple weeks ago. We're working on a spot for that. But Wolfie is a new addition, too, that we saw at the games.
That was new.
We need Wolfie
We're taking that secret to the grave. But I got to give you guys credit. You created a buzz around Westwood High School football where it really has made it feel like a college program. When you look at the game days and how fun it is and the different themes and just the whole from the start of the game to the end when it comes to the field goal kicks. Even leading up to that, when Tom's interviewing Coach Pindell about, they'll talk a little bit about the previous week, then they'll talk about the opponent for the upcoming week, and to get some insight. No one does that at the high school level. And to give these kids the best experience possible, I think is tremendous, because at the end of the day, you only have one high school experience. Totally. And to make sure that these are lasting memories, and it's also a very important time in their life. This is a very important time of their life of them figuring out what their future is, and also kind of developing confidence. So I think there's no greater team sport as well than football, and to be able to put an attention on it, to give them a lasting experience that they'll, especially when they've won back-to-back TVL titles on top of that. Amazing. They will remember it forever. Mm-hmm. And shout out for doing that. It always takes someone to just take it and run with it, and it takes a lot of time. It's not something you can half-ass. So
right. It started out of necessity. I appreciate you saying that. It started out of necessity where we saw the schedule this year, and by total chance, we had 3 home games. 2 of them on Thursdays, one of those Thursdays being Halloween.
Yes.
And we're looking at the schedule and we're like, exactly what you said. Yeah. Like, what drives me and what drives all the volunteers, I think, as parents and supporters of the kids are these kids go out there every single day busting their butts, and games are their performance.
Yes.
And to a sport like football, which has demands that are, probably unique compared to some other sports, we really wanted to show up for them. So I think it was a little bit of feeling like backs against the wall to start the season, and everyone turned up to make these games awesome. And I had people tapping all of us on the shoulder after games saying, we're doing the relay next year, right? Yeah. Which was chaotic, and Joe stepped in to make that crazy. And we're doing the field goals again, right, next year. So I think we're going to bring all those things back. My hope, though, to your point, is I would love to see this type of energy, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later. Yeah. I would love to see what you're talking about, where the student athletes are elevated on a week-over-week basis. Yeah. I would love to see that in all sports.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's something that, regardless of the sport you play, regardless of how much attendance there generally is, it can always be more. And these kids are in school all day, they do homework at night, and they're grinding with sports, and sports are so formative for them. It is one of their shining moments, and there aren't many of them, as you say.
Absolutely.
The more people can come out and the more that we can create events around sports, I think is it's a really big deal. And I shout out right back to you guys, because I think the other thing that has gone hand in hand this year with some of that newer ideas has been a social media and online presence that has made this feel like the kids are the stars in the community. And that is 100% Westwood Calls and what Westwood Media Center has done to really have that consistently every single day, kids being highlighted and showing up online. It's awesome.
And I got to give a shout out to Westwood Media Center because they cover every sport.
Yeah.
Can't cover like the cross country because it's just hard to with the course and whatnot. We covered golf. We did a golf event, but to cover every single sport has a story, and to even each kind of season it even cranks up a gear. Now doing post game interviews, and hearing the story, and we're at a lot of games. Eddie, I see you at a bunch of games, even when your kids aren't even playing.
Mostly when they're not playing.
Tell us about that. Do you just love sports? You obviously supporting friends and their kids and whatnot, but how much do you love just seeing a Westwood sports game, even if your kids aren't playing in it?
I mean, I love it. I'm there.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I think sports in the community are amazing. Yeah. And I do think that attention decreased a little bit over the last decade, which is okay, but I'm really glad to see it come back in things like the print newspapers and online. So, and then what you guys have done to bring attention is great. So I do think sports are just a really important thread of unity for a community, and I love being around it. Yeah. And I'm very lucky right now because I have, Dante's a senior, Gianni's a sophomore. So I basically know of like the majority of athletes who are out there. And I've seen them since they were little kids.
And or coached them.
Or coached a lot of them. So actually being able to go to games and seeing all these kids perform as basically adults now is a pretty cool thing.
So you guys both coached your kids growing up. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like coaching your kids?
I'll start off. Phenomenal. We started kindergarten.
Yeah.
I think we started kindergarten with flag football. I know for Murph, he naturally has an athletic ability, and he was born enormous. He was like a 10-pound baby.
Pounds.
Yeah. So he's always been big. He's always been bigger than the kids he played with, but soft and squishy inside. So as we were playing, starting in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, he kind of got better and better and better each year. Come up to like fifth grade, you get that kind of middle school attitude, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I can coach you anymore. So when I was coaching with Eddie, I'd have Eddie coach Murph.
Yeah,
I wouldn't correct him. I wouldn't try and because. It's a lot different once you start coaching your kid at a certain age. So it was still part of the team. I coached everyone else, still coached Murph. Just I had Eddie do the discipline on him.
Teenage angst where they want to listen to someone else. Dad, they hear enough from dad.
Oh, way enough. And then when we're home, they're hearing even more. But it's phenomenal to be able to take what you've learned, what your coaches gave you, and the things that you loved about your coaches that you put in yourself, and then pass that on to your own children and his friends and the teammates and all that.
By the way, the kids would cross the field. So like Murph, I would go to Murph, Dante would go to Joe. And that's way better, like at a certain age. You're right, at the young age, it's fine. But at the older age, it's way cleaner.
And it got to the point where he'd see Murph do something and he's like, yeah, I got this.
Oh, yeah.
And then we also heard when we were talking beforehand, before we started taping, that you guys also played in the flag football league. Can you guys tell us a little bit about your playing time in that flag football league?
Oh. All right, so we met in Norwood, right? We were both living in Norwood. Our wives actually met first, right?
Right.
At a little kid introduction.
Yeah, like a play group.
Yeah, a play group.
Yeah.
And Siobhan came home one day, my wife came home one day and said, my friend Diana has a husband that wants to play football too. And I was like, your wife likes to hook you up with friends.
Yeah.
And I met Eddie and
is this a charity case?
Dude,
it probably was.
Loved this kid immediately. He's like, I'll go play. First game we played, this kid was like an All-American.
4 touchdowns, 300 yards.
Not kidding. Yeah. Like absolutely dominated. But beyond that, like this smile, he's the best kid ever. Yeah. On the football field, that went away.
Yeah.
And I saw a different competitive side of Martucci. And I was like, oh my God. And I loved it. Yeah. He had the fire in him. And this is old man football, right? Yeah. But he was go. I mean, he was number one in the league for touchdowns, number one for yards, number one. He was like the best. He won us the Super Bowl. This kid did. He won us the championship. And being able to play with him, coach with him, be a part of all that stuff, there was nothing better. Our kids used to come to the games and watch. Really? One day, Grandpa Martucci showed up to one of the games. Deal. Yep. And
championships are on the line.
I was like, Eddie and AJ, Eddie's brother AJ was playing with us at the time too. I said, "Who's that guy?" Like it's 8 o'clock in the morning in Brighton on a Sunday morning. I said, "Who's this guy yelling at you?" He's like, "Oh, it's my dad." I was like, "Oh, it's in the fam." I loved it. Loved every single part of it.
We did win 2 championships in 3 years, just saying.
Yep.
What Joe is modest about is all I had to do was run and catch the ball. He was actually a college quarterback.
Yeah.
So for me, it was kind of easy. I would just find a way to get open,
Yeah.
and this guy would feed you time and time again, and you can already tell how he pumps people up.
He's got the Norfolk County Brady and Moss right there. That is awesome. Well, we always joke around. I mean, athletes never lose their competitive spirit. So, like, what do you guys do today to kind of be able to feed that spirit? You know, some people play pickleball, you know, different hobbies and whatnot. What do you do to really, you know, make sure you're scratching that competitive spirit that we never lose?
That's a great question.
I mean, unfortunately, I can't get rid of the competitive gene. So kind of in everything I do, I'm a little bit competitive.
Absolutely.
So at work, you know, I'm in biotech. I ran a company for a number of years. People would joke that, you know, I was a little bit competitive when it came to everything. Also, I was definitely criticized, and I unapologetically did not change in terms of, you know, making sports analogies left and right, and about winning and persistence and, you know, grit and all those things, because I think they translate into real life. So I think even at work, you can keep that type of fire in competition. And then on the sports side, you know, I like fitness, but I also stay very active. I try to do as many of the old man sports as we can. So we played flag football for many years until I blew out my Achilles at a tournament that I came back from vacation for to play. And, you know, I think Westwood's kind of cool, right? There's pickup hoops. We have a team in the softball league that we've done pretty well in recent years with a lot of guys in town. Pickleball has become a thing for sure. So there's a lot.
Yeah.
And before we came in, we heard some rumblings about this flag football team that you guys coached that had some studs from you know, a lot of names we've called over the last, you know, few years sports wise. Talk about that team. What was it like coaching this team, and who were some of these studs that we heard you know, some rumors about that were on that team?
Oh boy. Okay, you want me to do this?
You go again.
So I got notes, guys, because I knew we'd talk about
I mean, it's a lengthy list of incredible
I wanted to
athletes.
make sure that I didn't miss some kids. I'm going to miss some kids, I'm sure. But this is crazy. This has got to be one of the craziest stories of youth sports that I've ever heard, because you're going to know a lot of these names. And just you can confirm for the viewers, you don't know what I'm about to say here.
We don't know the list.
I can't wait to see your reaction, because you've profiled a lot of kids. This is on the same flag football team. So as Joe mentioned, we started in kindergarten. This was the big league at Zavarian, Bay State, which was around for a long time and was huge at one point. So as they got older and we got into middle school, we had acquired kids just from like, oh, you're in friends in the neighborhood, come on. We never did what some towns do where we're doing tryouts to create an A and B team. We're just like, oh, we just want to play.
Whoever wanted to play, they were on.
Whoever wanted to play came. And this crew turned into this multi-sport like leader crew now, fast forward all these years. So here's this team. And this was about 7th or 8th grade for like the oldest tier, like Dante's year. So on the same team, I'm just going to keep going. This might take a while.
Absolutely.
Dante Martucci.
Yep.
Drew Donegan. Thomas Warren.
Yep.
Jack Holland.
Yep.
Murphy O'Malley. I'm going to take a pause.
This is already TVL All-Star, TVL All-Star.
Exactly. Those are, in that list I just said, those are 4 football TVL All-Stars, 4 captains, right, of different years. But it doesn't stop there. So you can imagine, I'm going to come back to a play we ran that was crazy, but you can imagine that was pretty cool, right? Bunch of future football players. On that same team, Timmy Donovan, hockey captain. Joe Salcedo, right?
Hockey player,
goalie. Keeps going.
Yeah.
Adrian Wong, swim captain. Jack Stuhler, elite swimmer and lacrosse player.
Yep.
Keeps going. Colin Greeley, all-state runner.
Cross country.
And cross-country captain.
Congrats, Colin.
Going to BC. Mikey Russo, ski captain. Michael McGrail, who's Westwood Media Center's very own.
McGrail, son.
And then in the year below, 2 guys in town who happen to be twins that you might know the name of, Liam Williams and Ryan Williams, who are like stud lacrosse players, TVL All-Stars. So that list right there,
That's
that was
incredible.
all on the same flag football team.
Yeah.
And one of those years, I want to say it was in Dante's 7th grade year, we went into the playoffs. We were undefeated. We went into the playoffs, and we were not trying to run up the score, I swear. We went into the playoffs. I think we had outscored opponents, and these are all different towns, right? Wellesley and Walpole and Natick or whatever. I think we had outscored them like 150 to 15 going in. And we just, like, no matter, we had 3 full lines of guys. No matter who I put on that field, they were killing it.
Yeah.
We ran it like, we had different offensive sets. We had 3 full offensive sets that we ran. We ran a play at the goal line if we were ever close to the goal line, and now you can imagine these kids, like, them now as like adults, but imagine them as little kids. It was Jack Holland would take the snap. Yeah. He'd run left, he'd bootleg it and then reverse it to Drew Donahue. Dante would leak out to the front of the end zone. Tom Warren would be in the back of the end zone, and Drew could run or pass. How do you stop that?
How do you coach that, too? I mean, like,
a lot of practice.
I was so excited when I drew it up, and these kids, like, picked it up the first minute. So I'm like, we ran that play like 20 times. I don't think it was ever stopped.
Could you see at that age that there was something special about those kids, all of them? Just, obviously the wins, but, like, could you
100%.
see that it was going to translate to other sports as well?
Yeah, right away when you're coaching a kid if they're coachable or not.
Yeah.
And there are certain things you can coach kids on. Being coachable is really not one of them.
Yeah.
That starts at home.
Absolutely.
And it's your parents and your upbringing. And those kids, all of them were so receptive to our coaching and everything that we instilled in them. Yes, sir. Yeah. And then they got at it.
Yeah.
So it was a great thing to be a part of and a great thing to watch them at that little age, missing teeth, to grow into these young men that they are today.
And their IQ for football especially was through the roof.
Yeah.
And as you can tell, like they're multi-sport athletes. Like if you add up the sports and the captainship and whatever across that list, it's ridiculous the number of sports they touch.
Leaders.
The funny thing is that crew was very like cerebral and locked in. I had a younger crew with Gianni, my sophomore, his crew. But listen to some of the names on this crew. I forgot as I was going through. So Gianni, Matty Donovan.
Yeah. Great athlete.
Will Stuhler, Brendan Senjic, Patrick Hunt, Greg Walsh, Will Sesselman. Like we had the same those kids as well.
Studs.
And that was a very different crew, right? A little bit less cerebral and a little more just like hilarious and happy-go-lucky. But they also stomped some teams all around. So
those are all
awesome.
Underclassmen that are on varsity teams.
Exactly.
I don't think any of them are on JV. They're all studs.
So that crew, if we revisit this segment in 2 years, it's going to be just like the first list.
And they'll probably more like
all-star captain.
Totally.
What I've noticed too is that we have some terrific leaders in this town, like that are captains on these sports teams. Great example. We had the football captains on, and they were humble. No one wanted to take individual credit. They wanted to point the finger to the team or other players. And I think a great example was the Norwood game. That was a tough game, and Westwood could have just rolled over and just said, woe is me, and gone through the rest of the schedule. They didn't. They got better and better, and culminating in that Thanksgiving game, which earned them another TVL large title, back-to-back TVL large titles. You both have either a son that was a captain or a captain-elect. How proud are you of having kids that were elected by their teammates to lead Westwood football, a historic program in Westwood football?
Take that.
I mean, that's like a very leading question, Morgan. Like, how could you not be proud?
Yeah.
Right? So I had coached Dante for a long time and then got to watch him start playing varsity. Yeah. And he's got really strong leadership genes, partly in how he communicates, but partly in he has like the most grind of, top tier level grind where he will just every day, minute after minute, work on getting better and want to make people around him better. So he's very special in that respect. And so when he translated from like doing it for himself to starting to do it for his team, it was awesome to see. Yeah. But then I also have pride and awe in watching a lot of the other kids around. So, as I mentioned, I know Drew Donahue for a very long time, right? I actually all the captains and all that senior class I've seen for a very long time, and that crew was leaders kind of with the captains for sure, but also beyond the captains. And I think it's something that is very hard to teach, but it's amazing when you see it come out. And as I look to my younger kids, like, you know, Gianni, who's a sophomore, has some really strong leadership genes. He was, you know, kind of leading that line this year at center, which was not expected coming into the year.
Took it on,
and
you know.
So I'm super proud of that as well. And you know, Enzo's in middle school, but we'll see. But he has, you know, he's really taken on sports and kind of the grind mentality as well. So I see that a lot in this town. Obviously, I'm proud of those in our household, but I see it in a lot of different kids.
Yeah.
And I have the same level of pride for, you know, Murphy and the O'Malley kids because I've known them since they were little.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you at any given point after school drive down 109, you're probably going to see one of the Martucci boys out running because that's what they do. They're competitive. They stay in shape. And not only do we see that as parents, but their teammates see that. And they're like, oh, he's out running. He's getting at it. He's getting better.
Yeah.
I got to get out there. So even just through that kind of leadership is huge.
Yeah.
And like Eddie said, it's not only our own kids, it's the other kids out there that they have really good coaches in their life that they look up to, and they take those characteristics, instill it in themselves, and then can pass that on to their teammates. So it's great to watch.
When I think of Dante and I think of Murphy, I think of the Dedham game. Both of them had monster games.
Yeah. Awesome.
Murphy had a block field goal.
Yeah.
And then he had some huge sacks. He's catching the ball as a tight end as well. Dante doing his thing. There was one touchdown he had where there was about 4 Dedham guys, you know, had him wrapped up.
Right.
Not
30
enough.
yards away
I had a
from the
video
end
of it too because I was right on the
You're
end
on the
zone.
goal line, right? Yeah.
And not even 4 guys could wrap him up. And then the screen pass. I mean, that was what a call, what an execution, what you know, getting it done. And that was memorable to me because it was just a run and gun game. It was basically whoever had the ball in their hands at the end was going to win. And Westwood had the ball in their hands, and they won. Outside of the Holliston game, which games do you look back when you look back in the 2024 season, well, you'll remember that game? You know, was there one that stuck out for you? And if there was a game that stuck out, what are some of the reasons that stuck out that will stay in your memory?
Mine would probably be I'm going to go 2 years deep, and I'm going to go Ashland.
Okay.
All right. Didn't like that Ashland game at Ashland. This year, Ashland, I mean, they run an ugly offense. It's a very difficult offense to stop.
It's illegal in my view.
I mean, it's a football, but I mean, we're not going to get into that right now.
Yeah.
I'd say that game, we were kind of like, you could see the kids' heads down a little bit. And the second half, Constantino Giannopoulos. All right, one of the fastest kids I've ever seen in my life. I think he's like a state champion or something. Yeah. He took that kickoff.
Oh shit! I had
I
had Constantino on that team as well.
Did you?
Constantino Giannopoulos.
Oh, did you?
Also on that play.
Oh, I love it. Also, leader, incredible kid.
Yeah.
But like he took that kickoff back and like sparked the whole team.
Big time.
The stands went nuts. The kids went nuts. There was no turning back from there. There was no offense that Ashland could have brought that we couldn't stop after that point. So it's one play. It's 1 inch. Football is the greatest sport ever, but it's just one play that can give you that spark. And to me, that's something that opened my eyes to it. I loved it.
I remember that play was huge. Ash was up 14-0.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of momentum because Westwood hadn't figured out that defense. Shout out to whoever the defensive coordinator was. He made some great adjustments. He started blitzing the gaps and really disrupted the timing and all
Coach
that.
Costello, he's new this year. He did an incredible job.
Fantastic. You know, and football in life is a game of adjustments, you know, and he did a terrific job. They didn't score another touchdown after that. Westwood scored 35 unanswered.
Yeah.
But that was some great depth when
That's
you can
the
have
spark.
a kid like Tino Giannopoulos go out there and brought it to the 15. Dante scores that touchdown, and then Westwood gets right back to work. And Jack Holland doing what Jack Holland did all year.
Jack's the best, man. I mean, nobody better at the helm than that kid. Love that kid.
So when Tom and I did games, we always had the door open, and the den is usually off to the left.
Yeah.
But we see a little dad section over there. Talk about that. What's the dad section like? You guys get a little rowdy every now and then. What goes on?
Well, our wives were supposed to be there, but they don't want to be anywhere near us.
Horrified.
They're like, we're out of here. We need nothing to do with you. I don't know. How did that evolve? I think Grandpa Tucci started that.
Maybe. I think it actually evolved because we got kicked out of being around other parents.
Really? Okay.
Mostly from our wives, our spouses. So Joe and I would stand up top, right? And then the rest of my family, my brother, my dad would would stand up top, and then a bunch of other parents that would start to gravitate that way. So Brian Donahue would be up with us. A bunch of the guys from the Loop would, when they show up, they'd be up there. And I think, I don't know if you can tell if you haven't been to a sporting event in Westwood and not heard Joe O'Malley, because this guy's the loudest dude I've ever met, but in a positive way, and like getting the team
Tom
psyched.
was talking about, he said he was standing with you during the Dedham game, and he goes, this guy is next level.
A good next level.
Good next level.
So we stand up there, and we're not shy or quiet. Like, we'll yell down to the field, and I think part of it is like, this is sports, man. These kids are putting everything out there, so like, give it back to them with your energy, right? Get loud, yell down to the field. Sometimes give it to the refs a little bit. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Like, in this world where I think it swung a little bit the other direction, that you're supposed to be prim and proper and zipped up, hopefully that is like broken down a little bit, and we do our part to try to bring the energy.
Yeah, we just
12th guy, the dads are the 12th guy.
Totally.
You guys both have upperclassmen, so you've been through the freshman phase with each of your kids. What's some advice you give to parents who have freshmen coming in now in high school, or about to have freshmen come into high school as athletes? What's some advice you give to those parents as they enter that phase of parenthood?
Get involved. Volunteer. It is the best thing you can do for yourself, for your family, and for your kid, especially for your kid. The parents that are involved, unquestionably, in my opinion, have the best time. Know the most about it, and the kids need you. All right. Getting involved in being a part of something bigger than yourself, there's nothing better. And all of these parents, I've never met a group of parents like the Gridiron Club and everyone that Eddie put together in that. It's awesome. It's an awesome thing to be a part of. So any of the freshman parents coming in, I would say, even if it's the smallest thing, working at the snack shack or whatever it is they need you to do, up to being the leader of the hype crew, get involved in one way or another.
And most of those sports, as we talked about, it's like a couple parents who are taking the entire burden of trying to bring energy for the season. So in order to translate the energy to the kids who are on the field or on the court, it needs people behind the scenes. So I 100% 2 times double down on what Joe said. And you're going to have a great time, and the kids are going to feel it, right? The more energy there is, the more these kids feel it and feel like all their work is rewarded out in the stand. So every single sport needs people who are stepping up. And on the kids' perspective, because I've seen a lot of kids debate playing, especially in this world of like, sports have become over specialized a little bit, right? Like certain kids, you get to high school, they've been playing club all year round or whatever. There is always still a space in most of these teams for freshmen who are like, I'm not sure I want to play, just go. The worst case is you get cut and you don't play, but in most cases there's going to be a spot to be part of a team and have some unity, and like, that's the best.
And then the social life too. You're meeting new, parents. You're meeting new parents that you might not know, and being able to connect with them. And just meet new people in town, different backgrounds. It's great. Mm-hmm. It's just a great way. It's another family. I used to coach hockey, and they would do pasta dinners for the kids, but the parents used to go as well. And I think it would be more fun for the parents because they would all catch up, and they had fun. What's the social life for football parents these days? I know the kids have the dinners and whatnot. Do the parents get together as well? What's that like?
I don't think. Well, first of all, we did have meetups this year for the first time before games, which were awesome. So especially at away games, the hype crew would pick out a bar or a restaurant right near the away game, and we'd go. And at one point, there were like 30 or 40 parents crowding a Ashland bar or something, which is awesome. This year it wasn't Ashland, I can't remember, but some of the away games had a big crew before games, so that was cool. But I think it's still kind of like those patterns and those rituals that are sport specific, which I look forward to as a parent. So these little rituals that develop with the parents and the players. Like, I know in football season, I'm going to be at a game, and I may not see them in a couple months, but when Charlie Toole catches the ball and no one can tackle him for 70 yards, the first thing that happens is I'm over, and me and Big Charlie are giving each other a pound and a hug. And like, that stuff's awesome. Brian Donahue was famous for every time, back when Dante was a little younger, every time there would be, he'd have a big play, he would be swimming through the stands over people just to give me one big high five. Yeah. And like, it's those little things that are awesome. And it happens with the kids too. Yeah. Like the coolest thing is all these rituals where parents interact with kids. This was, I don't know what you guys think, this was unique for me when we started seeing high school sports here, that in a lot of the sports, when the game's over, the kids come to the sideline and like, the parents go down and see all the kids. Yeah. That was really cool and unique. And I don't see it at every town. I don't see it at every sport. And I thought it was first just football. Then I saw it in lacrosse. Yeah. Then I saw it in baseball. Then I see it in basketball when I'm there. And so those little rituals too are awesome. So you're seeing the parents after the game. And then, football for me was like, I found Dante, I gave him a hug. I found Gianni, I gave him a hug. I found Drew Donegan, I gave him a hug. And then things you wouldn't expect because I didn't grow up coaching him. My boy Damani Cole, who turned into a hell of a linebacker, a cornerback at the end of the season. I would always find Damani, give him a pound up, and make sure that we were seeing each other. So I think it's parent, and I think it's parent-kids that establish these kind of rituals and relationships over a season. That's part of what makes sports magical.
It's a family, and if it's not your kid, it's still got that family feel to it. And what's the old saying? Families and players that play together, vacation together. I hear you guys have gone on a couple of Aruba trips. Tell us a little bit about these joint family vacations. I've been hearing some great hype around it.
When was the first one? Bahamas?
Yeah, we did this little island in the Bahamas that we were lucky to get to.
We took our plethora of children to the Spanish Wells, which is an island off the islands.
Yep.
No running water, little running water.
A little bit.
We did build a shower outside, right?
Oh, that's because he can't sit still. So
the shower was broken. So
the shower's broken, and Joe's like, "I got this."
There were too many kids for one inside shower, so we needed an additional one. That's what it was. But nothing better than the Martucci's, let alone going away with them to the tropical It was unbelievable. So we went down there. We went to Aruba. We've been in little canals. I think Trick and Enzo found the manatee.
Oh, they swam with the manatee.
There's something swimming next to me. It was like a 1,500-pound manatee, and then the whole family jumped in and swam with the manatee. So these are things that as your kids are growing up, I never got to experience in Rosendale. But these kids get that opportunity. It's awesome. And to share it with your best friends, I mean, there's nothing better than that.
And you can imagine the visual. I wish we had some pictures right here. The visual of our two families. So you got 4 pretty loud and high energy adults, because all 4 of us are. And what was that? 3 and 8 pretty loud and high energy children. Yeah. I think when we were in Aruba, we rented an industrial van, literally.
Yeah.
And you looked in the rearview mirror, and it was just like faces and heads everywhere. And mostly who I saw were the O'Malley's, because the Martucci's are like smaller and we're buried by them. But it was awesome. Like we were jammed in, and then we'd get to somewhere and we'd just I can't imagine someone being on a beach when we pulled up with our van. And like clown car, all these kids got out. And then within probably an hour, it was like broken out into full scale, like football game on the beach.
A full-on tackle football.
Like actual
unsanctioned football.
Yeah.
Unsanctioned.
I think that's when we realized we were old, because our kids started to outrun us, and we were like, "Oh, well, we're going to let you win this one."
I think he tried to tackle, or did tackle Dante. I tackled Murphy, and we were like,
I think I tried to.
I think we fell off, and we're like,
hamstring doesn't bounce back like it used to.
You guys, we're going to go make dinner. We'll be right back.
And then, funny enough, we were down at that beach, and as we're setting up the game, we ended up hooking up with the Ferreras, who are good friends. So,
great
Caitlin
athletes.
And Trevor and Ryan, who were there. So we had quite a football crew down there that were playing on the beach, and that thing tends to happen a lot. The other funny thing is, if we're glad the O'Malleys are back in town. For a while they were down in the South Shore, but when we'd go there, what would happen immediately being at their house is like we'd be running patterns in the yard. and it just, like, the kids are great, right? The O'Malleys are like a ball of energy everywhere they go, and I think a lot of people gravitate to them. And we've been really fortunate to be close friends and just have all our families always kind of in that ball of energy.
That's awesome. What do you see these days as the biggest challenges for the student athletes? COVID was one thing, and kind of circumventing through that. But now that we're past that, kids are back in school and they have, the same academic standards and workloads in addition to the practice game schedule. What are some things that you see as the biggest challenge for student athletes?
I think they've got a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
I am not quiet about the fact that, and my kids know this, that I think, the phones and social media are a huge distraction. It's fine. You stay connected to family and friends, but I think back when we were playing sports, and that adds a whole dimension that wasn't there.
Yeah.
But one, it just takes your focus all the time, right? You're always on. But it's just an environment where it can seed lots of conversations and distractions that are probably unnecessary and detrimental. So I think it's harder for an athlete to stay mentally focused and psychologically focused on like what's important in a season where you're juggling school plus sports plus this pretty new, psychologically difficult social construct of social media. Like it's hard, man. So I think it's tough on kids these days.
Yeah, I think social media is phenomenal for these kids. The stuff that you guys do and the shout outs you do, they live for that. Hey, check me out. How's my arms look? It's like, all right, buddy. But then there's the other aspect of it where you get stuck in the doom scrolling.
Spend too much time, when you should, and during peak times, if you're doing it during that homework window, it's taken away from time management.
Yeah, and I'm the old school dad. Like we didn't allow Instagram, snappity snap face, any of that.
Yeah.
And Murph came home one day. He's like, the only way the football team communicates is through Snapchat. I was like, so I had to ask the coach, and he's like, yeah, they all have Snapchat. Yeah. And I was like, that's the one thing I didn't want him to have. So I allowed it to a point. Yeah. But then, I pay for the phone, right?
Yeah.
Don't the parents pay for the phone?
Yes, you have a say.
Do your kids pay for their phone? So it's my phone. Yeah. I lend it out to you so I can go through it anytime I want. And I could take it from you anytime I want. So keeping tabs on that is super important, especially nowadays. A lot of kids, from what I see, we didn't grow up with these, but they hide behind the screen. And that needs to somehow be monitored. Yeah. And not every parent is going to do it. And I think that coaches, teachers, someone other than the parents also need to step in and help with stuff like that, just because it can lead down a dangerous path.
Well, absolutely. Kathy Delaney-Smith, who we had on, she's the recently retired Harvard coach. She's the winningest Ivy League coach in Ivy League sports history. She coached 42 years. She coached at Westwood for 11 years, had a 96-game win streak at Westwood. It was a national record.
Wow. And
pioneered the Title IX fight with gender equity in sports. And she makes a great point about the distractions. And she says right now it's hurting communication. And communication is so important when it comes to sports, when it comes to being able to hear criticism from a coach and not take it personally, when it comes to being able to say less but provide more, when it comes to plays, when it comes to adjustments, things like that. And it was a great tidbit I got because communication, it's not just important in sports, it's important in life. The answer is always no if you don't ask. And if you aren't if you're not getting at bats at being able to ask tough questions or have tough conversations that are honest conversations, you're going to avoid a lot of the things of, the positives that are on the other side, and to see what you're really made of. So it really is taking people, and students, athletes kind of away from critical attributes when it comes to being a team player and, anything in life. So it was interesting, and it aligns exactly with what you were saying, with social media where it is today, because people will break up with their significant others these days on Snapchat or on their phone. That's a horrible way, and a horrible precedent to start, when you probably could have had communications, and just had open and honest conversations to probably get through whatever challenge or issue that might have been there in the first place.
Right.
So it's definitely, I think, a challenge that kids are facing these days, and hopefully we can get back to the days of having face-to-face conversations.
Even if you want to ask a girl out and you used to have to call the house and talk to the mother before you got the girl on the phone.
That was scary.
And make sure your big brother's not on the other line listening in.
When you had to call the house and the dad's asking you 10 questions before he even hands the phone over, I'm still, I guess, technically a millennial, but we still had to go through that.
You were there, yeah.
And it was, heart racing 150 beats a minute just to try and get the phone over to, whichever girl I was trying to talk to.
Yeah. It's a challenge in itself.
It was different. It's a different era, but we earned it.
Absolutely.
We had to slay some dragons
Made
just
us
to show
it.
we were, we are the right person.
Yeah.
Any coaches that you guys want to give a shout out to? Coaches that you thought were, a positive impact on your kids, whether it was at the elementary level or even high school level. And it doesn't have to be football as well.
Yeah, I mean Westwood has in my view, some unique coaching in that they really care about the players. That is not always true. Yeah. So we've had, my kids now, their sports are football, lacrosse, and baseball, right? So we have those three sports. And in Coach Pindell and his staff, and Coach Zahurik and his staff, and Coach Whalen and his staff, I was shocked with all three of those to find people, both them as the head coaches, but also their staff that actually really care about the kids, really care. A couple little mini stories. Coach Pindell, well, actually, this is a story people wouldn't know, but if you ever have a chance to go to a banquet at the end of the season, it is like a love fest, and I mean that in the most positive way. The coaches are pouring themselves out talking about these kids, and you're they really see them as sons, and that's awesome. Coach Zahurik in lacrosse, this is a really interesting story. Dante last year ruptured his appendix, right? Not on the field, so it was during the day. So my expectation is most coaches, that I knew growing up is the next day you're in school, they'd probably pop by and say, hey, how you doing? You feeling okay? Check, that's the right thing to do, check in on you. Before Dante went into surgery that afternoon, and again, he didn't do it on the lacrosse field. It happened in school. He never saw Coach. Dante got 3 calls from Coach Z. Literally, it was every hour on the hour before he was in surgery. Yeah. Dante's sorry, doc, I got a call. And he's picking up the phone. Sorry, nurses. Yeah, hey, coach. Yeah, I'm okay. And it was Coach Z calling. Dante, how you doing? What's the latest status? Everything okay? Do you need me to do anything for you? That's a level of I don't know. That's a level of caring about the kids on a personal level
awesome.
That I was not prepared for, and it's incredibly surprising in a positive way. And I think what I've heard from a lot of parents and in boys sports and girls sports is that that is pretty consistent across the town. So that I think our kids are very lucky to have people that really care about them as humans as well as performing athletes.
Right, and Coach Pindell and his entire staff is similar. I mean, they're awesome human beings, great leaders, helping these kids out. But beyond that, I'd say, with Desmond's my youngest, he's 6, the youth sports coaches, the high school coaches get paid, right? But they don't get paid a lot of money. Yeah. They get paid maybe enough to get their gas back and forth to all the practices.
Pennies on the dollar.
Bad. But they do it for the love of the game. They do it for the love of the kids. These youth coaches definitely don't get paid. No. Quite the opposite. You got to take a lot of time to go through the online training and the this and that. They are the unsung heroes in my eyes, because these guys and girls give everything they have to making the sport fun at such a young age. And that, to me, is by far the most important thing. I think the saddest thing in the world is for a young kid, to quit a sport because of a coach. And I've seen it so many times, and it's awful. You should never have a kid quit a sport because of a coach. That's on you. Your job as a youth coach is to make this sport fun. Teach them a little bit about the sport, but make it fun for them so they want to come back year after year. Like Coach Insla, Dez's little soccer coach, we have an indoor league that he's playing. He threw together a practice. He's out there running around, kicking the ball with the kids, teaching them inside and out everything he can. These are 6-year-olds. Yeah. I'm trying to let them not get hit by a car. And he's actually getting at it with all of them. That kind of stuff, it warms my heart. It's awesome to see that, and we need more of that. Yeah. And I see it in every sport, every youth sport that my kids are involved in. I see it in Westwood, and I've never seen anything like it. It's great.
The energy too, the kids pick up off the energy of the coach, and if they see someone passionate about it, they're excited. They want to be, just as excited about it. Last question for you guys. you both grew up, you were athletes, both played sports at the high school level, college level. How important were sports for you growing up? And how much have you used some of the things you've learned in sports? How much of it still resonates with you today in your personal life and your professional life?
I'll let the college athlete go first. I did not play college sports, so he's the real one.
I wasn't a great athlete. I was surrounded by great people. Sports were everything to me. Yeah. Everything. I played football, baseball, basketball, wrestled, boxed, everything. I tried everything at least. Football is the one thing that stuck through high school and college, all 4 years of college. The best thing I ever did. I never would have got through college without college football. I can guarantee you that. Yeah. The camaraderie that you build. Let's start with high school football. Yeah. You're at a weird stage. I mean, high school was, I told Murph that when he was like 10. I said, when you're like 18, 19, we're going to be best friends. Right now, no. Like, you think you know everything, and they all do. Yeah. They all think that. But you learn. And my high school football coach was the greatest influence, other than my dad, the greatest influence in my life. He's the reason I went to the college I went to. He was in my wedding. Yeah. Those are the things that stick with you forever. Yeah. The camaraderie I had in college football, these guys are my best friends to this day. Yeah. It affects everything I do every day. It is the best thing I was ever a part of. It teaches you every job you have. You're going to use the lessons you learn in football in your job, no matter what it is. You're always going to have somebody to answer to. There's always going to be a chain of command. Football teaches you that. It teaches you the patience. It teaches you the resilience. You're not always going to win, but you got to figure out how to get over that adversity when you don't, and how to make yourself better.
Yeah, I think all sports, as I think about, I stopped playing at end of high school. My wife, Diana, played in college. She played college soccer. So we talk about this a lot, and our kids obviously love sports. Life is actually about constantly getting through ups and downs, right? It's like wins followed by 5 or 6 negatives, followed by a hurdle and a problem you have to solve. There's almost nothing, I can't think of anything other than sports that actually trains you in that on a daily basis, right? The kind of high resolution, high frequency of ups and downs and challenges and adaptations you need to make where you just can't give up. Yep. Like, that's actually what sports do all the time. Yeah. Like, when you think about it in that realm, is there anything better for training you for life? So that's why in the business world, I will continuously use sports analogies because they are the most relevant. Yeah. When you talk about persistence or we have to solve a problem, it is the sports analogies, and it's tapping back into that mindset, even if people haven't played sports, and that, like, I get that. But it is that concept of like constantly problem solving and being resilient and feeling awesome one minute and horrible the next and having to persevere. Yeah. Like, that is what builds people who can go accomplish things in life. Because something we talk about in our house a lot is like, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. So, that's what you got to do big things and to do interesting things to you. And sports train you for that.
Yeah, the mental toughness, the physical toughness, discipline, and just trying, not afraid to make mistakes.
100%.
And then the confidence of knowing that this team might be better than us, but if we work hard and we plan, we have a good game plan, and we're going to give our damnedest, we're going to go out and win. We're going to win this thing. Yep. And you look back on that, anything you do in life, whether it's a big presentation, whether it's speaking to a board, you can channel that and remember who the person you were that did that then. You're still the same person who's going to do that now. Yeah. And in totally. Sports, I always look back at when I doubt myself or question, well, I've done this, this, and this. I'm going to be okay, and I'm going to give everything I got. And if I fail, it's a learning experience, but not going to be afraid to try.
I think that's when you talked about what are we proud about as parents. Yeah. I mean, it's some of the accolades, but it's always a much greater pride on like putting yourself out there. So we talked about like Gianni this year. My kid went out and as a sophomore being like, I want to play on the line. Yeah. And the coaches supported him putting in the work. Actually, one of the coaches in the off season, Coach Burke, was like, I'll do sessions with you if you really want to try. They didn't gift it to him. They're like, you got to earn it. He put himself out there. I'm more proud of that than some of the accolades on the field. Enzo, my youngest, like he had not played lacrosse ever. Yeah. And he went out last year as a 6th grader. And that's hard, man. In a lacrosse town,
Yes.
Westwood is a lacrosse town.
Big time, yeah.
And he went out and he's like, I'm going to pick up a lacrosse stick. And he grinded in the backyard. And I'm incredibly proud of that. So like those types of things, which I see time and time again with all the student athletes in this town, I think those are like the moments in sports that, some people get accolades, some don't.
Yeah.
But it's those trying and putting yourself out there and being willing to fail. That's what leads to success.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of great feedback, and there's no question where, your kids get tap into some of the leadership that they get from mom and dad, and some great lessons learned, but also support systems as well. And we're looking forward to not only we had a lot of fun this season, but the spring season is going to bring some great things, with lacrosse. Looking forward to fall as well with the football season again, for Murph and also for Gianni. And, we can't wait to say those names and say them proudly and loudly, with the upcoming season.
It's going to be a great year.
Thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast to talk with you guys, get a perspective from a parent's perspective, and also understand a little bit about that passion that comes on the sidelines in the dad section. But appreciate you guys coming on, and thank you so much.
Thank you a million for letting us do this. This is awesome.
Absolutely. Might have to do episode 2 after the spring season.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
And we should do it from the sideline.
Yes. We'll do a flay hive.
We'll
do it up at the booth. We'll get a couch set up.
I love it.
Folks, thank you for tuning in to episode 27 of the Wolverine Report. Looking forward to seeing you all on the next one.